Battery's okay.
Okay.
So someone take this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give this to her. And I can take. And you need the mouse.
Yeah, right. That's right.
It's the front cable.
This one? No.
No, the
this
middle.
one.
Yeah, middle one.
Okay.
There's so many
Whoa,
cables.
whoa.
Yeah.
It might be.
Disconnect.
I think take out this two cords and then we can.
Which two?
These two, but then the capture cards are gonna go off.
Yeah.
Unless we just no, but then the capture card goes off.
What's this?
This is these two cameras. Yeah, that's
cameras.
running. Yeah, this is this card.
Oh.
But I can just keep the laptop here for now. I can just sit here because they won't be able to see me in the camera.
Well, we can always.
Table more and sit on the table.
Yeah, that's.
For
No, but there's so many. Yeah. No, this isn't it. Okay. That's the. Let me just.
So, oh, you're okay there, yeah?
Just go to OBS. Okay, put this camera on.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
where is your mic?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, mic. Back to mic.
Let's press the button. It is such a once in your car.
The green light means
Yeah, it's on. And it'll be flashing,
Then
say
I
it's
put it down there. It's on, yes.
Oh, let me know. Okay, we're still on the first battery, on battery A. And it's not even dead as yet. So it'll last us the entire class.
Okay.
It's a new one.
Hare Krishna.
It's perfect. Then we can just zoom in. So for yeah.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Ram, Hare Krishna.
No, not too much. Because you need to
Krishna, Krishna. Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Ram, Hare Hare.
The volume as mics the work. Yeah. And you just press start. But it's still be now.
Ram, Hare Hare. So, now you got to check this thing here because, see, these may get in the way.
The camera.
There's a
The bigger one is in a way.
and the mics are not right apparently.
Mics are
Yeah,
not
that's
right. What?
They're saying that the mics are not good. They are unable to hear.
They can't hear.
Yeah.
Then we have to check. Facebook can't hear
No, there's people on Zoom can't hear.
on Zoom.
Oh, they can hear now.
Yeah, don't ask me how they couldn't hear it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Couple of minutes.
Yeah, it's still so hard.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare
It's one
Krishna,
minute more.
Krishna, Hare Hare,
It's
Hare
just
Rama,
a-
Hare Rama,
No,
Rama Rama, Hare
when you're
Hare.
using it. There's a red button in front. Just press it.
Yeah, turn that on.
It's not changing. It's saying no SD card.
That means the cables are loose. This
The SD card is here.
is obviously there. Just push it in, make sure it's in. So that's in.
Okay, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not.
Oi.
It feels so different from God's room now.
Hmm?
It feels so different being in here now. Can I start?
Start. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, devotees. Welcome to our 16th evening program of Sri Isopanisad Seminar for Bhakti Shastri. Thank you very much for taking part. We're really very happy to have you here. We appreciate your association very much, and we hope you're finding the program interesting. So we will begin by chanting our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachade Shatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, well, we have got up to mantra 12. This is our last week now. 5 this evening and 4 more evenings, finishing Friday night. So we've got to get through from mantra 12 all the way to mantra 18. Therefore, we have to move along a little bit. This evening, we'll try and do mantras 12 and maybe not all of 13, but at least half of 13. So yes, let's begin. Let's get into it. So mantra 12. Andan tamaha pravishanti ye sambhutim upasate tato bhuya eva te tamo ya usambhutyam rata. And the translation: those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. This is pretty heavy, isn't it? pretty strong. Yeah. So I want to bring out an interesting point, that this verse, the Sanskrit, is very similar to the Sanskrit of Mantra 9. Mantra 9. Have a quick look and you'll see that there are 2 words different. Otherwise, they're actually the same. They're actually the same. Yeah. So in the second line of Sanskrit, in this Mantra 12, it says, Ye sambhutim upasate. And that, it's actually asambhutim, yeah, is the word. It translates as demigods. Yea, those who, asambhutim, demigods, upasate, worship, those who worship the demigods. In Mantra 9, it's yea, avidyam upasate, those who worship avidya, nescience. And then in the last line in the verse we're doing this evening, Mantra 12, ye u sambhutyam rata. In Mantra 9, it's ya u vidyayam rata. Otherwise, the verses are identical. So, Mantra 9 translated, those who engage in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Here this evening, Mantra 12, those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into the purport. And Srila Prabhupada, in the first paragraph of the purport, he distinguishes between sambhuti and asambhuti. Yes. The sambhuti is the absolute truth, and the asambhuti is the demigods. Yeah. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that asambhuti refers to people who have no independent existence. This is at least the demigods. Of course, it's more than the demigods too. But it's not Krishna. Krishna has independent existence, but the demigods do not have. Yeah, so they are the asambhuti, the asambhuti. They have no independent existence. Then sambhuti, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's absolutely independent of everything and everyone. You know, there's the 6 qualities of Bhagavan, 6 opulences, and one of them is renunciation. That means that Krishna, Bhagavan, he's not attached to anything. He exists completely independently, but nobody else can. Nobody else can. And in the purport here, Srila Prabhupada explains that the demigods and great sages, they can't understand Krishna because they're not independent. Even though they have great powers, these powers are limited. And therefore it's difficult for them to understand Krishna. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, verse 2. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect I'm the source of the demigods and sages. So this is the problem for them, that Krishna is their source. They're dependent on him. Therefore, they can't understand him completely. Okay, so we go on to the second paragraph. And here, Srila Prabhupada talks about philosophers, great rishis, mystics. They try to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their brain power. Of course, this verse, let me just mention actually that this verse is, we're in part 3. We're in part 3 of the Isopanisad, and the subject matter is the absolute and the relative. And this is the second section of that part, mantras 12, 13, and 14, in which we understand, we're to understand the differences between the absolute, that which is completely transcendental, and the relative, or that which is material. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, back to paragraph 2, that you get these philosophers, rishis, mystics, and others, and with their little brains, they try to distinguish that which is spiritual, and including ultimately the Supreme Lord, from that which is relative, or the material world, and everyone and everything in the material world. And Prabhupada makes an interesting point that if they carry on doing this, all it's going to help them do is come to a negative type of conception, nothing really positive. In Sanskrit, it's called neti, 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 that God is not this, and not that. But what he actually is, well, that they cannot really say. So they become stuck in this negative conception without a positive idea of what is the absolute truth. Yes. So it's an incomplete process. And Srila Prabhupada says here that by conceiving of the that by this process, one imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simply the reversals of the relative material qualities, and are therefore also relative. Yeah. In other words, what this means is that in this world, everything has a form. So the negating process would mean then that on the transcendental level, everything has no form. On the relative level, everything has relationships. On the absolute level, there's no relationships. Right, like that. And Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, by conceiving of the absolute in this way, one can at the utmost reach the impersonal effulgence of God, known as Brahman, but one cannot make further progress to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. And we go on to paragraph 3. So these speculators, They don't understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahman is his effulgence and Paramatma is his plenary representation. They also don't understand, Prabhupada's explaining here, that Krishna has his eternal form and pastimes and qualities. The demigods tend to think he's another demigod. And there's this tendency in general for many people to think that Brahman is the supreme absolute truth, or the ultimate feature of the absolute truth. So, yes, Prabhupada concludes the paragraph, but the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotion, can know that he is the absolute person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. Yes, very nice. This is Prabhupada says, we read, by dint of their surrendering unto him. Through their surrendering, it is through the process of surrender that one can realize Krishna, or actually the right way to put it is that Krishna will give his mercy so that we'll be able to understand and realize him. And there's a famous verse, Bhagavatam 127, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janiyat Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayada Hoitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. It's on manual focus. Otherwise, the focus may shift. You'll have to see because I can't see.
No, it's in perfect inside.
Okay, so we move on to paragraph 4. And here Srila Prabhupada quotes 2 Bhagavad Gita verses, or not quotes, but refers to. Chapter 7, verse 20, chapter 7, verse 23. So the 2 of them, they're very strong verses, pointing out shortcomings of demigod worshippers. Yes. Here they are. 20. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. As chapter 7, verse 20, Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 7, verse 23. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Yeah, so the thing is that we are entangled here in this material world, and we shouldn't, we need permanent relief. We shouldn't strive for temporary relief. That's the point. Yes. So we shouldn't, in other words, we shouldn't worship the demigods who can give temporary benefits. Yeah. Rather, we must worship the absolute Supreme Lord Krishna, who's all attractive and who can give us complete freedom from material bondage by taking us back home, back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada, okay. Well, we have a special question here for those of you who are doing Bhakti Shastri. it's based on this verse 12. And there's an excerpt here from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 24, verse 330, purport. And there it said, demigod worship is meant for unintelligent men, because the benefits derived from demigod worship are all material, temporary, and retractable. They can be withdrawn. Yes. So here's the question that, in this purport, Madhya Lila chapter 24, verse 330, we hope you noted that, that in this purport, that there was something stated regarding the worship of demigods. The demigod worship is meant for unintelligent men because the benefits from demigod worship are all what? Three things. There are three things: material, temporary, and retractable. Okay. All right. So we go on to paragraph 5. And here it's pointed out, Srila Prabhupada points out, or he refers to the 723, which we just read a few minutes ago, that the demigod worshippers go to the planets of the demigods. Moon worshippers go to the moon, sun worshippers to the sun, etc., etc. And Prabhupada makes the point that there's a sort of a natural inclination amongst human beings to travel in outer space and reach other planets, either Prabhupada says by spaceships, mystic powers, or demigod worship. Vedic scriptures say you can achieve those higher planets by any one of those three means. But the most common, you know which is the most common? The most common way of reaching higher planets is by worshipping the demigod presiding over the particular planet. Yes, that's what's stated here. Excuse me. So, and Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 16. Let me just read it. Abrahma bhuvanal loka puna avartanorjana mamupecha tu kontaya punar janma na vijate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all the places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. That's one of the sort of classic verses of Bhagavad Gita. So now let's have a look at paragraph 6. Paragraph 6. That, it's very strong, very powerful statement. Those who worship demigods and go to their planets remain in ignorance. What about those who worship demigods and don't go to their planets because the worship is just, they cannot worship properly? Anyway, that's bad, isn't it? So, here, Srila Prabhupada describes the universe as being like a coconut. We've referred to this a few times here and there in the course of the Bhakti Shastri. Yeah. that the coconut, let me just read what Prabhupada says. The coconut is covered by a shell and half filled with water. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within is dense. Well, now Prabhupada is talking about the universe. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within is dense, and therefore the sun and the moon are required for illumination. Outside the universe is the vast and unlimited Brahma Jyoti expansion, which is filled with Vaikuntha lokas. The biggest and highest planet in the Brahma Jyoti is Krishna Loka, or Goloka Vrindavan, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself, resides. And Krishna never leaves Krishna Loka. So what happens when he comes down here then? He brings it with him. That's what happens. So it's consistent. He never leaves Krishna Loka. So he's omnipresent, and this is fitting in with what we read in mantra 4, that he's situated in one place, but he's everywhere. This is Krishna. So now we move on to mantra 7, or paragraph 7, excuse me. So this is interesting and important. The problems of life cannot be solved simply by going to the moon or some other planet, whatever. Above or below this planet. And therefore, the Isopanisad advises us, just don't bother with that. Don't try to physically move, but try to spiritually move. Prepare yourself so you can go back to Godhead, back to Goloka Vrindavan, or at least back to the Vaikuntha planets. So, there are many pseudo-worshippers who become religionists just for name and fame. They don't want to get out of this world. They just want to live more comfortably in this world. This is so common amongst people who are practicing practically any religion. It's so common. They want to maintain their material status quo or improve it by using religion. So then Prabhupada makes an interesting and important point. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish pseudo-religionists into the darkest regions by preaching atheism. Atheists say there's no God. Impersonalists support the atheists by stressing the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. But then Prabhupada counters these ideas. Anyway, Prabhupada counters these ideas by pointing out that so far in Sri Isopanisad, we have not come across any mantra or any statement in any of the mantras which denies that the Absolute is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can run faster than anyone. And so, whoever runs, we can all run. When I was young, I used to run a lot. People run. The Supreme Lord runs. means he's a person. Yes. So particularly if the Lord is the fastest runner, that definitely indicates that he's a person. So therefore, the impersonal conception of the absolute is just another form of ignorance, Prabhupada says. So we go on to mantra 8. Let's have a look here. So mantra 8. In mantra 8, paragraph 8, I'm sorry. Yeah. So mantra 8. So all these pseudo-religionists, like these bogus demigod worshippers and others who are just trying to improve their material situations through religion, and the manufacturers of so-called incarnations, they're going against what is stated in Shastra. And so those people are going to go to the darkest region of ignorance. It's going to be very bad. It's going to be extremely bad. It really is. Particularly for those who preach these things, because they're misleading people. So Prabhupada points out many impersonalists, they pose themselves as avatars, incarnations, and foolish people who don't understand much at all, they get misled by them. It's very unfortunate. And for those ignorant people, foolish people who just don't understand, Prabhupada says, if such foolish men have any knowledge at all, it is more dangerous in their hands than ignorance itself. Yeah. Better to be ignorant. It's a rather amazing idea. Yes, so if they don't even worship demigods properly, even people who do worship demigods properly only get temporary results. And the real idea is to get permanent results. Anything other than that, you're just wasting your time and you're becoming your own worst enemy. So now we'll go on to paragraph 9. Paragraph 9. And this is very encouraging. Prabhupada says, as soon as we reach Krishna, as soon as we become Krishna conscious by devotional service, then you get complete freedom from the bondage of birth and death. It's just so wonderful. So in other words, the path of salvation, deliverance, it fully depends on knowledge and detachment, which is given by the Lord when one serves him by his mercy. Yes, the pseudo-religionists, they're just in a hopeless position, basically. Prabhupada says, most of them want to live in the golden shackles of material bondage. Let us go to some heavenly planet, enjoy more, but it's just maybe a golden situation, but they are just bound up and they cannot extricate themselves and they'll suffer terribly. Yes, so some of them make a show of devotional service while engaging in immoral activity. In this way, they may pass. For the foolish people, they may be accepted as spiritual authorities, spiritual masters, and as devotees. Sometimes, you know, in Vrindavan, at Kartik time, you get all these Bhagavat Saptahas, all these 7-day programs of recitation of Bhagavatam done by this yogi and this Swami and all these people. And some of them, they have no respect for the real acharyas. Some of them, they advertise themselves as ex-disciples of somebody, usually some bogus person. So they're ignoring the Vedic injunction that we have to worship the acharya, worship the bona fide spiritual master. So, they like to say they have become acharyas, but they don't even follow the principles of the acharyas. So we come to paragraph 10, and Prabhupada makes such a strong statement. It's really strong. These rogues are actually the most dangerous elements in all society. What do you think of that? They're worse than, revolutionaries. They're just the worst of all types of people. And Prabhupada makes the point, because there's no religious government, because the government really has no idea of what is truth and what is fiction in spiritual terms. Therefore, these misleaders, these rogues who are misleading the foolish people, they escape punishment. Actually, they should be locked up for misleading the people, for fraud. Really, they should be locked up. And but even though they won't get locked up generally while they're living, after they die, then Yamaraj and the laws of this material world will catch them. And Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, verses 19 to 20. This is what's going to happen to these people. Listen to this. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. And Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport, the paragraph and the purport. Prabhupada concludes it. Sri Isopanisad confirms that these pseudo-religionists are heading towards the most obnoxious place in the universe after the completion of their spiritual master business, which they conduct simply for sense gratification. And here's an interesting, I just want to read this. This is interesting. This is from a conversation between Prabhupada and a devotee. And the devotee is talking about these misleading, cheating preachers of impersonal philosophy and these types of ideas. And the devotee says, then why is it seen that they are making spiritual advancement? And Prabhupada says, no, they don't make any spiritual advancement. They come down. Don't you see this impersonalist, Vivekananda? He took sannyas, but he came back to hospital making. They're not advancing. They're coming back, falling down. While they have no engagement in devotional service, they say, oh, Why are you finding God anywhere? Here is God, Dirija Narayan, these poor men. That's it. That is not advancement. They're coming down. Now they come down and they defame Narayan. That Narayan has become Daridra, means poor. They're saying that Narayan is Daridra, poor. That's pretty strong, isn't it? So now, devotees, let us go into mantra 13. And we'll see how far we get. I doubt we'll finish it, but that's okay. All right. Anyad evahu sambhavad, anyad ahur asambhavat. Iti shishruma dhiranam yenas tad vichachakshire. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. Now, we just pointed out half an hour ago or so how mantra 12 was very similar to mantra 9. You remember that? Just 2 words different. Now this mantra 13 is very similar to mantra 10. Let us just quickly open up mantra 10, just a sec. Mantra 10, here it is. So the Sanskrit. So mantra 10. Anyad evahur vidyaya, anyad ahur avidyaya. Iti shushruma dhiranam yenas tad vichachakshire. And mantra 13. Anyad evahu sambhavad, anyad ahur asambhavat. Iti shushruma dhiranam yenas tad vichachakshire. So the translation of mantra 10 is, the wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. And mantra 13 says, it is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. And all this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. So the 2 verses are virtually the same, except mantra 10 is talking about culture of knowledge as opposed to culture of nescience. And mantra 13 is talking about worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and as opposed to worshipping that which is not supreme. So this is interesting. Okay, so let's go into the purport and paragraph 1. Paragraph 1. So this mantra stresses hearing from the dhiras. Actually, in this mantra and 10, dhira, iti shushruma dhiranam. You should hear. Shushruma means to hear. Dhiranam, from the sober people. Yes, the undisturbed authorities. So Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport here that we need to hear from the bona fide spiritual master, who has also heard from his bona fide or undisturbed acharya, bona fide spiritual master, and therefore is never presenting anything that is not mentioned in Vedic literature. So Prabhupada, in the middle of the purport there, he refers to Bhagavad Gita 9:25, another well-known verse, in which it's said that those who worship the forefathers go to the planets of the forefathers. Let me just read the translation from Bhagavad Gita. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. Yes. So this is what is presented in the Vedic literatures, that if you worship Krishna, you will go to him in the spiritual sky. But if you worship someone else or do something else, you'll go to some place which is sort of connected with whoever you're worshiping or whatever you're doing. So, yes, Prabhupada concludes the purport. If we worship the Supreme Lord, we'll certainly reach him in his eternal abode. And if we worship demigods like the sun god or moon god, we can reach their respective planets without a doubt. And if we wish, Krishna, Prabhupada, listen to this. And if we wish to remain on this wretched planet with our planning commissions and our stopgap political adjustments, we can certainly do that also. Oh, Krishna. Well, it's true. It really is true. It's just so true. Prabhupada when Prabhupada gives the sauce, the hot chili sauce, he really gives it. He doesn't mince his words. Yeah. So, now we're in paragraph 2. So Prabhupada makes the point that nowhere in authentic scripture does it say that you'll achieve the same goal by doing anything. You'll achieve the supreme goal if you do things connected with the supreme goal. But if you do things disconnected from the supreme goal, of course you won't achieve the supreme goal. That's, it's like totally obvious. But self-made so-called preachers and gurus and people like that, and even avatars, they say that, do what you like, and you'll achieve the goal. Yeah, like all roads lead to Rome. We have roads here outside the temple. They don't lead to Rome. They don't lead anywhere near Rome. So, these fictitious pseudo-spiritual ideas, they're promoted by these false people, and fools are attracted to them. Prabhupada makes the point. A person who has purchased a ticket for Calcutta can reach Calcutta, but not Bombay. Yes. And Prabhupada, so this is a problem. And we need to take shelter of the bona fide spiritual masters in order to who are coming in parampara, in order to get the correct ideas. And Prabhupada, at the end of the purport, he refers to, he actually quotes. I mean, it is unusual in Isopanisad that Prabhupada actually quotes a verse, Sanskrit and translation. He has referred to many verses, and we have quoted them, but he in Isopanisad has just referred that it says such and such in such and such verse. Here Prabhupada quotes chapter 4, verse 2 of Bhagavad Gita, very famous. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. And Prabhupada goes on in paragraph 3 to express, to go a little deeper into that when Krishna was present, or particularly before Krishna had come, the bhakti yoga principles had become distorted. Therefore Krishna came. The principles were distorted when he came, so therefore he spoke Bhagavad Gita to correct things, to reestablish the disciplic succession. There's an interesting, I'm going to diverge slightly and tell you a little story which appears in Tattva Sandarbha, or the commentaries, actually, Baladev Vijayabhushan particularly, on Tattva Sandarbha. What happened? How it is that, as Krishna says, that the science as it is appears to be lost. In course of time, the succession was broken. So Baladev Vijayabhushan, he quotes from the Mahavaraha Purana, how in the universe one time there was a great drought. It was very difficult. The only place where there was something to eat, and it was like by mystical arrangement there was plenty of food, was the ashram of Gautama Rishi. So all the sages in the universe, they all went to the ashram of Gautama Rishi and they stayed there. But then the drought finished and they wanted to go home, but Gautama would not give them permission to leave, because according to etiquette, when you visit someone, you cannot leave them unless they give you, or until they give you permission, and he wouldn't give permission. So they were stuck. They wanted to go home. So they thought of some sort of clever but slightly crazy plan to create a situation in which it seemed like Gautama had become contaminated and the ashram had become contaminated. Then they'd have an excuse to leave. So they made a calf, what looked like a calf out of straw, and put it on the path that Gautama used to go to the river to take birth every morning. So he walked down the path and in the dark, early morning, kicked this straw calf and just carried on. But then all those other sages and rishis and people, they came and said, "Oh, you killed a calf. We can't stay here. We have to go." So they all left. But then during the day, Gautama found the straw calf and he understood that it was just a trick. So he cursed them. And he said, "Let all knowledge turn to ignorance." And this is how what Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse 2, that in the course of time the succession was broken. That's how the succession was broken. So anyway, now here we're in paragraph 3. The Lord has come to reestablish the disciplic succession by speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. because Arjuna is his confidential friend and devotee, as the Lord says in the next verse, chapter 4, verse 3. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you're my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So Prabhupada concludes the paragraph. In other words, only the Lord's devotee and friend can understand the Gita. This also means that only one who follows the path of Arjuna can understand the Bhagavad Gita. Because if you're following the path of Arjuna, you're following the path for becoming a friend of Krishna and a devotee of Krishna. So on to paragraph 4, which is very short. So now, of course, there are many unqualified translators and commentators who have made many unqualified translations and commentaries of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita particularly. And they explain the verses in their own ways. And Prabhupada says, postulate all sorts of rubbish in the name of the Gita. Such interpreters believe neither in Sri Krishna nor in his eternal abode. How then can they explain Bhagavad Gita? So now on to paragraph 5. In this mantra, paragraph 5. So Krishna makes it very clear in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verses 20 and 23 that only those who have lost their intelligence worship demigods. Now, we just read these verses. Half an hour ago, we read these verses. Let me read them again, because Prabhupada's really getting into this here. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. That was 20, now 23. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? It's really wonderful. And therefore, we must, Prabhupada then goes on to recommend that we should just surrender to Krishna. As Krishna says in 1866, you all know 1866, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Yeah. So, Prabhupada concludes the paragraph. Others will continue hovering on the material platform with their paltry ways of worship, and thus will be misled from the real path, under the false impression that all paths lead to the same goal. Shame. So mantra 6. So the word sambhavat, which was already there in the previous mantra 12, it refers to Krishna, the Supreme Lord, but that we should worship sambhavat. We should worship the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada explains this is very significant. Krishna, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 8, Krishna explains, he is the Supreme Lord. I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So let us now, we'll go through paragraph 7 and then we'll finish for this evening. So Srila Prabhupada, actually what Prabhupada is doing in paragraph 7, he is, he just quoted, Prabhupada quoted chapter 10, verse 8. Like we said, in Isopanisad, Prabhupada, he only actually fully quotes verses which are just of extreme importance, like 1866, and now chapter 10, verse 8, in which he explains that he is the supreme absolute truth. So in in paragraph 7, would you believe? Well, have a look, and you can see Prabhupada quotes, at least the translations. First of all, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, then Narayana Upanishad, and then Narayana Upanishad again, then Maha Upanishad, then the Moksha Dharma, then Varaha Purana. You know what Prabhupada is doing here? You know what Prabhupada is doing? I mean, if you know Bhagavad Gita, you'll understand immediately what Prabhupada is doing. Prabhupada here, this paragraph number 7, at least where he begins quoting in the Atharva Veda, Prabhupada is almost word for word quoting the purport of Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, verse 8. It is literally almost word for word, quoting from different Vedic scriptures to establish, to provide evidence Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is almost verbatim. And there is a certain order in the verses presented. First of all, from the Atharva Veda, the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, then Narayana Upanishad, Maha Upanishad. So these are from the 4 Vedas. You see, traditionally, a traditional system of presenting argument from the Vedic scriptures is, first of all, you quote from the 4 Vedas. Then you quote from the itihasas, the histories, Mahabharata and Ramayana. And then you quote from the Puranas. This is the system. And Prabhupada has done it. Quoting from the Atharva Veda, the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Narayana Upanishad, then Maha Upanishad, then Moksha Dharma, which is part of Mahabharata, and then Varaha Purana, which is one of the Puranas. In this way, Prabhupada is establishing, on the basis of Vedic authority, according to Vedic system of presentation, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes and all that is. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay.
Can I switch Facebook off?
Sorry?
Can I switch Facebook off?
Yeah. Switch off Facebook and just switch off everything.